So we have our search bars built out, and now we need to assign some parameters that we send to our search page. So the first thing we actually need to do is create our search page. So we have to add a new page. We'll say search, and then we'll just create. Now let's come back to our navbar, and let's think about what we need to do. So when it comes to websites, I want to cover a little bit on what these URLs mean and what all of the information inside of the URL represents. So let's come to Airbnb. Now we're on our homepage. If you click on airbnb.com, the URL, that's all you see. Once you start navigating to different pages, you'll start to see different things appear on the URL. So for example, if we select this property right here, or this one, you can see that the URL expands to include a ton of what looks like garbage. So let's scroll back to the beginning and see if we can't decipher what all this means. So what we've clicked on is a specific property, and we're on a specific property page. Now you can see that it says /rooms. So that must mean that we can rent out rooms in this home. Now rooms actually represents a directory. So when you have airbnb.com/rooms, that means a specific page, or it could mean a parameter. Then you see a string of numbers with a question mark, and then you can see adults. So we have adults equals 1. Now that's what's known as a URL parameter. So it assigned adults and it gave it a value of 1. That means when it's looking for information to display and meet certain criteria, it needs to have adults equal to 1. And you can assume that that means it's displaying properties with an adult count of 1+, which probably is all of them in this case. Nonetheless, we continue on. You can see we have category tag. So then it has a tag associated with a string of numbers. Now we don't know what that string of numbers really represents. That's kind of on Airbnb's side. But you can see there is an associated category tag that it takes and displays. Then you can see we have the children. So the children right now is 0, meaning we haven't gave it a children count. But if we did, it's going to use that URL parameter and look for properties that have children counts of 0 and above. And you can move down this all the way to the end. Then you'll see something like search ID. And if you keep going down the URL, you're going to find more and more parameters that are required to know what information to display on this page. We have private room equals true. We have infants equals 0. Pets equals 0. Then we have photo ID, so it's taking the photo ID and it knows which photos to display now for this property page. So that's essentially what URL parameters are. It's information stored in the URL, and then the application takes those parameters and figures out what to display on the front end. That's exactly what we're going to go do in our Bubble application. So we'll come to our editor, and let's go to our workflow. So we're in our workflow, and we want to add a new event when something is clicked. Now, the thing we want to look for is this search icon. Now, the group is going to be the group search button, so that's what we're going to be looking for. Let's go to our workflow and add that. So when this element is clicked, like we've done previously, we want something to occur. Let's give this a color of cyan, and then let's go to our element and find that search button. So we actually have 2 search buttons, so let's go rename in our design which button we're actually looking for. So we're looking for the full display. So let's look for full display search button. That way we can differentiate the two. Let's come back to our workflow and look for that element. So we now have the group full display search button. Let's go ahead and select that. Now we need to navigate the user to a page when they click the search. So let's do that. Let's go to navigation. We'll go to page. The page we want to go to is the search page. Then we actually want to send certain parameters to the page. So let's select send more parameters to the page and see what happens. See, we have a bunch of parameters we could add. And the first thing it asks for is a key. So what are these keys? Well, the keys are essentially whatever's going to appear in that URL, and they can be anything you want. So for our purposes, we'll say location, and then it allows us to assign a value to that key. So we're going to want to take whatever location is input by the user. So let's select our search box. So we'll just type in search box, and we'll select our search box's value. And then we assign that parameter, that URL key of location, whatever is the location in the search box, meaning whatever the user looked for. So this would be, for example, location equals Scottsdale. And that's what we're looking for. Now you can add as many parameters as you want. And the reason you add more parameters is so you can display certain specific information and pass information to a page in order to display something. Now to keep things simple, we're only gonna pass the location and then the check-in and check-out date. So we can do check-in, date, and then we'll have a check-out date. So check-out date. And let's assign those values. Of course, we're gonna find those date pickers. So date picker A is value, and then date pickers B value. Great. So now we're essentially passing that information to the page, and on that page, we will display this information according to our URL parameters. Great, so we have that set up. Let's now go to our search page. Come here, and we're gonna build out a quick UI and display the information we need to. So come to search, come to design. So first thing we need to do is, of course, drag our navbar on the page. And now that we added that second element, it's gonna look a little wonky, so we need to fix that. Let's drag our navbar over all the way to the end. Then, of course, let's drag this down so it fits both our components. Now let's give our page a layout. Of course, we're gonna wanna do our column layout. Then we can come back to our navbar, make sure that the height is a 0 min height, so it's as small as possible while still containing the elements it needs to. Now let's move on to our pages layout itself. And to do this, we're actually gonna grab one giant group so we can put a bunch of stuff in a row, because we wanna display a map over here, then our property information right next to it. So let's drag a group on the screen, like so, under our navbar. Then let's make it a center alignment. Of course, we're gonna make this a row. Center align, center align. Now let's uncheck the fixed width so it takes up all of the space needed. For now, we can just give it a min height of, say, 500 and a min width of 0. Great, so we have our space to work with. First thing we're gonna do is actually drag over 2 new groups. So we'll have this group, and then next to group B, we're actually just gonna drag our map over. So we'll come down and select map, and then drag that right next to it. Now let's make sure that these components are taking up 50-50 across the page. So let's change the layout so we can do that. This is gonna be in column formatting, and we're gonna uncheck, make it a fixed width, and then we're gonna do the same over here. So come and uncheck the fixed width. We'll give it a min width of 0. And we also need to come and make this a min width of 0. That way they're taking up the exact same amount of space as far as width. We can change the height to make them a bit more even. We'll give them both the 500 min height as our parent group is, so it looks nice and neat. Now let's build out our property listing UI. But to do this, why reinvent the wheel? Let's go copy and paste that from our index. So we'll just copy and paste this entire repeating group, and then we can come back to our search and paste it in. Great, so now we don't even have to worry about building that UI. It's already done for us. The only thing we need to do is actually assign the information that is going to get displayed here based off those parameters. So how do we do that? Well, let's come and select our repeating group and see what information is being displayed. Right now, we're doing a search for properties. We're doing addresses within 100 miles, our current location. But we don't want to get our current location. We want to get whatever location that they chose. So instead of doing current geographic location, let's see if we can't get one of those URL parameters that we sent over from our previous step. See, if we scroll down, we can actually get data from page URL. And that's what we want to select here. So we want to get data from page URL, and that parameter name is going to be that location that we gave it. So that's going to be the key, or the parameter name is location. The type is actually going to be the geographic address. So we can close that. Now we're searching for properties within 100 miles of whatever location that user sent over from doing their search. So it'll be in the URL itself, which is super cool. And that's really the only parameter we're going to pass in to this search field, because we haven't really established a way to dictate the check-in and check-out availability. So we can close this out. And now we're only going to be displaying properties within 100 miles of that location. And now you know how to set that up for all parameters. Say you wanted to include adult count, child count, bedroom count, etc. It's the exact same process. You would just add more and more constraints and get that data from the page URL. So I hope you can see kind of how that works. Now let's see what it may look like if we're trying to display the check-in, check-out date and the price for those dates. How do we do that? Let's change our price per night, and let's do a few things here. So we can leave what we currently have in here, but we want to do a couple operations before that. Just hit enter and come up here and let's look for those parameters that we sent. So the first thing is we'll come and select insert dynamic data. We'll get the page data from the URL. So get data from page URL. The parameter we're looking for is the checkout date. That's important. Let's do the checkout date first. You'll see why in a second. We'll select date. And then we want to do a minus. So we want to minus the checkout date from the check-in date. So let's get the other page URL, the parameter. We'll type in check-in date and select date. And that's going to give us that number of days. Then we want to format it as a number of days. And then we actually have to put in the current sales property and its price per night formatted in the currency value. We'll give it that 1,000 separator comma, and we'll close that. And then we can actually delete this. We don't need this any longer. So this is actually getting those check-in, check-out dates, assigning a number of days, multiplying that number of days by the current property's price per night, and displaying that information back to the user. So super cool what you can do with URL parameters. It's essentially how you pass information from page to page based off a user input. And I find it super cool how you're able to do that, how all this information works and is able to be displayed on your application. But we are still not done. We need to display all of these properties that get displayed on our map. So let's see if we can't do that. Come to edit, come to number of markers. Right now it's single. We actually want a list, meaning we're going to display all of the properties that get displayed in our search. So instead of single, we'll select list. For type of marker, we want to select property. So we're looking for all those properties. Then for the data source, we want to do the same thing we did over here. So we can actually come to our repeating group, and let's actually copy the expression we predefined here. So we're getting the same data, and we want to use that same data. Come back to our map, and just simply paste it over here. And that lets us display all of the properties listed here in our map. So it's taking the same URL parameters from our previous step and assigning them to our map so we have access to them. Then for the address field, just simply select address. For show title and window, go ahead and select always. And then for the marker caption, we can just select the current marker's title. So that property title. I literally can't get over that it's that simple. Still to this day, to pass information and display it like that makes it so easy using these no-code tools. That's why I love building on no-code so much for this exact purpose. It makes it so easy to work with. And that essentially concludes all of our Airbnb's UI and page setup. The last things we need to do are just some functionalities and updating of the database. So don't go anywhere. Let's get right into that and finish off this Airbnb application so you actually have a project that you've personally built under your belt to showcase. And with that, I will see you in the next lesson.